total with restricted and unrestricted, that the reserves in the water fund are approximately $700,000 projected at the, no, actually as of 2014, 2015. So we are making progress, and that was the intent of the long-range planning. It is amazing that the decision of bringing that operation within our management control, the positive effect it's having on finances. So with that, then I would try to answer any questions you might have.
In the tentative, not even tentative, in the preliminary before tentative budget,
Right.
Do you have a line item for a fire study contingency or whatever we want to call it?
Yes, and I may modify that slightly going forward, but for 2015, 2016, we have a Barrier Island Fire District study budgeted at $25,000. And as a follow-up to directions given to me about meeting with managers, we recently have had the first meeting among managers. There seems to be support, both in concept, in theory, and financially, to proceed, if possible, with a feasibility study, just simply a feasibility study. We're trying to make the mechanics possible, that we may be able to speak with somebody that is technically sound and capable of taking those discussions to another level, so to speak. So just this week, we had our first meeting. Wasn't sure that would ever come about, but surprisingly things changed quickly. And,
Well, I don't think it's totally surprising, because Delray continues to pursue shifting fire EMS to the county, and now Boynton is doing the same thing. So if we find ourselves in a situation on the Barrier Island as to having our two providers of fire EMS service moving to the county, which will inevitably cost us considerably more than we're paying now. County rates are substantially higher. That's not how it's going to work for Delray at the outset, because they will be able, or Boynton for that matter, because they will be able to reduce their taxes to the taxes to village to the residents, who will then pay it to the county instead of to Delray. But Delray's collection of property taxes can then be used for some other purpose. So you get the drift there. So it's
No sleight of the hand?
a little bit of shell game. But I think Delray, certainly we or anyone else, absolutely wants to assure that we have the best possible fire EMS service. Money is an important factor, but best includes all of the resources that are available to assure that people are safe and that fires can be put out. We really can't just sit back and wait to see what happens. I think we ought to be proceeding to look at options other than buying our service from Delray, or from the county for that matter. It's a prudent thing to do.
I think there's some effort in that regard.
And I compliment the town manager for how he's kind of set this thing up.
Any other questions of the town manager?
Yeah, the recommended water rate increase of 4%, is that in addition to the doubling of the reserves
yes,
per month?
yes.
And is that a cost that's passed on from Delray, that 4%?
At this time, I've had no indication of that that information you just mentioned.
So would that be like a source of revenue for the town, that 4%, or go into the reserve fund?
The answer is both. It is a source of revenue. It will be funneled, for sure, the The reserve charge goes into a restricted area on our financials. And as net revenues, which is the difference between revenues minus expenditures, any net revenue, whether positive or negative, goes to the unrestricted fund balance. So the answer to your question is yes, both of them are considered revenues, and both of them, the intent is to build reserves.
Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. 2.25 years ago, there was an email from Mr. Thrasher to the president of Barron Signs, where Mr. Thrasher implied that he'd be retiring in the spring of 2015. And I wonder if that is the case, if you want to put a line item in your budget for finding a new town manager, because I know it can be an expensive process. But if it's not, then perhaps you just need confirmation before you finalize your budget.
Thank you. What other points do you have to make?
The other item is the $1 million in legal fees, which is just, for a lot of municipalities, not much, but one the size of Gulfstream, burden on the 500 homes, properties that are paying into the taxes here. And I just wanted to suggest that it only takes 3 commissioners to change the direction of the ship is heading. And if the town's got a plan B after the RICO, well, that's distressing to hear. If it means you're gonna need $1 million next year for that, that's even more distressing. I mean, I'm prepared to face that, as debilitating as this last 6 months has been, but I really think the 3 commissioners that appear to be the most even-minded consider if it's not time to step in, because you're all equally powerful according to the charter. No one commissioner has more power than the other, but it might be time perhaps to have a shade meeting, perhaps to invite litigants to sit down and work it out and avoid this $1 million legal fee. There's so many things on the table this town could use, between public access to the conservation district, a park perhaps for residents who don't happen to belong to the expensive and very exclusive clubs. There's just such better use for the money. I have no doubt that Jones Foster is connected, super intelligent, creative. They come up with all sorts of ways to, put the screws to somebody. But it just seems like it's time to make the ship turn another direction.
Why don't you dismiss all your lawsuits?
Oh, I would love to do that.
Why don't you? That would save the town
Is this
so
going to be a
much money.
settlement conference right now?
If
Believe
you'd
me,
love to
the
dismiss
lawsuits are
your
very
lawsuits,
debilitating.
I would
I don't
love to
like
have you
doing
state
that.
that right now.
I'm sorry?
If you would withdraw your lawsuits, I would love to hear you state that right now.
Yeah, my wife would like that as well, and so would a lot of
would
other
we
people
all.
I've talked to.
I think the entire town would love it.
Yeah, well,
Why don't you give that some thought?
I'd like to respond to that. And I know there's a lot of ego involved in lawsuits. There's certainly a lot of ego involved in RICO. But some of us feel an obligation to do the right thing, not just for us. And I don't want to sound like Don Quixote, but there are democratic principles at stake, and the only way it seems to get those principles online is by redress to the courts, for a judge to actually step in and say, this is how this should be settled. And I'm leaving it to them.
And have us pay you money.
I'm
Have
sorry?
us pay you money would be helpful to that democratic principle.
There's so much more involved than money.
I see. Okay.
I can't reduce it to just that, but we're talking about the budget.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to say that there is an opportunity with 3 commissioners to step in and decide we can do something different.
Thank you very much for that point.
Thank you.
Anybody else care to comment? If not, let's look for a motion on the proposed millage rate for the fiscal year 2015-2016 at 5.1 mils. Is there such a motion?
I'll move to propose the millage rate of 5 mils.
I second.
Ms. Taylor?
Commissioner Ganger,
Yes.
Commissioner Stanley,
Yes.
Commissioner White,
Yes.
Commissioner Orthwine,
Yes.
Mayor Morgan.
Yes. Is there a motion to certify a rollback millage rate 3.6335?
So moved. Just for understanding, that's an arithmetic number, I mean, it's a fact.
It's a calculated
It's a
number
calculated number
based on the
Based
trim requirements.
with trim requirements. It's not,
Yes,
this
that
is
is
something we
correct.
have to do, it's not something that we need to do, we have to do it.
You
Yeah,
have to do it, you
yeah.
have
You
to
have
do
to do
it.
it
It's a
every,
rollback.
every July
Right.
it has to be
Yeah.
done, so
Yeah,
that's why we're doing it.
So moved.
second.
Ms. Taylor?
Commissioner Ganger?
Yes.
Commissioner Stanley?
Yes.
Commissioner White?
Yes.
Commissioner Orthwyne?
Yes.
Mayor Morgan?
Yes. It's been recommended that we have, the tentative budget adoption for first public hearing on September 11th, 2015 at 5:01 PM. We would have our regular commission meeting that same day, beginning at 4 PM. Is there a motion?
Question, Mr. Mayor, just so I understand, will the budget be discussed again at the next meeting? So you'll be doing all the work, but are you going to be discussing it any further between now and then?
Well,
Public discussion.
I have no plans to at this point in
Okay.
time.
Okay.
That may change
Yeah.
if something materially changes
Okay,
that I need to bring to you.
Sure.
But what you have now,
is what you'll be working on,
that's correct.
Yeah.
Certain things may change as it relates to revenue estimates. We
Mhm.
don't have all of them from the state.
when do
Some
we
might-
get that?
They come in July.
Mhm.
We have two. We have half-cent sales tax and revenue sharing at
Mhm.
this time. We have some gas taxes
Mhm.
that have not yet been provided to us from the state.
And technically, Delray can't or shouldn't change its fire formula that they have for us, the greater of four, was it 5% or it's a CPI connection or whatever, as I recall.
Well, that's a contract.
Yeah, so it's a
question,
contract, but I mean, look, I'm saying that it is a
Yeah.
contract and therefore you have to assume
That's
that
correct.
they will abide by the contract as you put your budget numbers together.
That is correct.
Okay.
Okay. Is there a motion to have the first public hearing on the tentative budget for September 11th, 2015?
So moved.
5:01.
So moved.
Second.
Read it.
Commissioner Ganger?
Yes.
Commissioner Stanley?
Yes.
Commissioner White?
Yes.
Commissioner Orthwyne?
Yes.
Mayor Morgan?
Yes. It's suggested the second public hearing for the final budget adoption be on September 22nd at 2015. Is there a motion to set that date?
So moved.
Second.
Read it.
Commissioner Ganger?
Yes.
Commissioner Stanley?
Yes.
Commissioner White?
Yes.
Commissioner Orthwyne?
Yes.
Mayor Morgan?
Yes.
I think maybe we should have also a motion to change our regular meeting on the 11th to 4 PM.
Okay, I thought I'd said that, but maybe
You
not
did
as part
mention
of the
it, but I
motion.
think we need a
Okay.
motion.
Also
Okay.
moved.
Second.
Read it.
Commissioner Ganger?
Yes.
Commissioner Stanley?
Yes.
Commissioner White?
Yes.
Commissioner Orthwyne?
Yes.
Mayor Morgan?
Yes.
Rita, for the public's benefit, when does the budget have to be submitted to the county?
The millage, proposed millage rate that you have voted on today has to go to the county no later than July, the end of this month.
Okay,
And then you could lower it
yep.
in your next meeting processes,
Mhm.
but you cannot raise it above that.
Okay.
That's just the millage.
Items by commissioners.
I'm sorry.
Wasn't there a-
You're right.
Yes,
Sorry.
That's 10. Or 11, excuse me.
I see it.
Any items from commissioners? If not, I would like to make a comment and discuss at some length today, but certainly on everybody's mind, and that is the RICO action. There should be no misunderstanding of the RICO decision. The judge did not condone, he did not excuse the sort of behavior that the town has been suffering under. Instead, he said that that behavior, in his opinion, did not rise to the level of racketeering under the federal statute. Now, the judge is a trial judge. Trial judges do not make law. They try to adopt whatever law is in existence and fit it to the facts before them. And that's what this judge tried to do. This is a case of first impression. That means there is no other case like this, not in Florida, not in the entire United States. It's a case of pure first impression that individuals using requests and litigation and threats to intimidate and to extort by means of misleading and fraudulent behavior, money, and changes in actions from municipalities rises to the level of RICO racketeering. Our lawyers recommended that we appeal that decision to the appellate courts where such law is expanded, where the RICO law could be more fully addressed to these facts under first impression. The trial judge suggested, in his opinion, these cases move forward in state court. And I think you all know it, but I will repeat it. We have not put all eggs in the RICO basket. In fact, our defenses and our actions have been ongoing in the state cases, predating the RICO action, where we have had success. And we will continue those actions. The allegations in the RICO action, although a class action addressing many other municipalities and contractors, are in their essence the same allegations we make in the state cases. And so I want there to be no misunderstanding, whether it's in state court, or whether it's in federal court, or whether it's in state or federal court, both of them, these people will be held to account for their actions, should those cases not be withdrawn and a resolution met to prevent that from happening. A couple days ago, I received a letter from Martin O'Boyle to me, not from counsel, but from him to me, requesting a sit-down to discuss settlement of the actions. Of course, I've given that to our counsel. And I think a review of history is important. We've done this before, Mr. O'Boyle. It cost the town an awful lot of money and embarrassment. And immediately after settling with Mr. O'Boyle, the last time he did this, he immediately turned around and began the lawsuits again, and expanded his scheme to include other people and other lawyers and other cases and runners across the state. And so if we raise an eyebrow at these sorts of letters, you can understand. But we didn't just stop there. We've met with Mr. O'Boyle before. Similarly, getting together, as I forget the gentleman's name, but as he suggested, that we just sit down and talk, that's how you begin settlement negotiations. Well, we tried that. And that turned into threats and banners and more litigation. And so the correct way to settle cases is where the attorneys for a party make a proposal of settlement to the attorneys for the other party. And if such were to come in, we would certainly give it consideration. But until such resolution occurs, where these cases are all withdrawn and this town is protected, these cases in state court and in federal court will continue. Any other comments?
Mr. Mayor, do you want a motion to authorize the appeal of the RICO action?
I don't think it's necessary.
Okay.
But if you think we should, happy to do it. Any discussion on the appeal of the RICO action?
No, I fully support your taking charge of this, and I think you're handling it the right way, and I like the history of it, and there's no way we could ever settle again.
Any comments?
Amen.
From the public? Yes, Mr. Bell.
You make us really proud, thank you. And we do support you. And I hope that your remarks will be put in a letter to the residents so they fully understand the whole ramifications of what you just explained to us. And I really want to thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bear.
Just another voice in support of your appeal of the RICO action. I think the vast majority of the residents of the town support you in this, and if you need any encouragement, we'll drum it up for you. Second comment about settling the current actions. As far as I know, if you settle the current actions, there's no way to prohibit them from bringing a new series of actions the next day. So what does it benefit the town to engage in extended discussions in settling these, when knowing that these gentlemen are very likely to begin another 5 or 10 or 15 actions the next day?
The lawyers have discussed whether or not it is possible to incorporate into a settlement agreement that sort of prohibition. I agree with you. I think that would be legally suspect, but looking into it, because frankly, absent that, we would just be going back to the previous settlement where
I understand.
negotiated.
Lawyers are inventive, but they can only be so inventive.
Exactly. It's a good point.
One last thought. I understand there is a state RICO action, and perhaps the state courts would be a little bit more understanding of a local municipality that was being held captive by these kinds of actions than would the federal courts. And I wonder if council could take a look at whether a parallel action under state court would be worthwhile.
Yes, it's being considered.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I think if you ask Mr. Randolph, he will tell you that federal court trumps state court. We have a U.S. Constitution, a state constitution, local ordinances. I know it's nice to extend optimism and hope to your constituents, but to do the very same RICO in state court now seems to me the definition of folly. I mean, I don't want to see the town waste any more money, and I don't want to have to go through the same turmoil again, but surely you come up with something better than that, because, I don't mean better, but an alternative, because appellate courts, basically, from what I understand, only look at, did the first judge do the right thing? Did he make a mistake? If he didn't make a mistake, the appellate court is not going to open up and invite more evidence. Maybe my understanding of the law is wrong, and Mr. Randolph could correct me, but I really think you need to consider your plan B if it's just going to result in more wasted money. And again, I suggested that people sit down. And I know you say, well, we sat down with Mr. O'Boyle and then he turned around and found something else to find fault with us. But well, there must be some solution, because I can see this going. I mean, I can see the millage rate 2 years from now being 7.5%. The way we're going, do we really want to do that to the town when there is a possibility of solution, instead of, you know, digging your heels in and spending all this money? My gosh! But I would suggest that if Jones Foster recommends the appeal, or Mr. Richmond, and et cetera, you get another opinion, because it's my money too.
Thank you for your legal advice, Mr. Chair. You're wrong on that. There's not a plan A, plan B. This is all part of trying to defend the town from your actions. You are part of this conspiracy.
It's true. When I don't get a public record, it's
To
my
harm
action.
your fellow residents, to harm this town, to create a high millage rate, the expenses that we're incurring, the diminishing reserves, that's all on you. Any other comments from the public?
Mr. Mayor,
Just,
Yes,
I'm
sir.
sorry.
Mr. Mayor, one last thing. Since 3 years ago, when the town spent so much of their budget on the underground and all these other expenses that came up, to say that's all on me and that all the millage rates are on me, it seems like, it just seems like some politicians in third world countries that always look to find someone to blame things on. And I really take umbrage with the putting it all on me. So that's your opinion.
Well, you can share it with O'Boyle, okay?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
just for the record, I the record, I think, reflects that there is no objection to moving forward with the appeal in regard to the
I
RICO.
thought we were gonna have a motion there. Was
Oh, are you?
comment?
No, but I'll move to, for the appeal of the RICO.
Second.
Read it.
Commissioner Ganger? Commissioner Stanley?
Yes.
Commissioner White?
Yes.
Commissioner Orthwein?
Yes.
Mayor Morgan?
Yes. All right, let's move to item 10, item 10D, change to the town's personnel policy.
This is really just a bookkeeping action. Our personnel policy must include this language, reporting wrongdoing, and the personnel policy will be changed upon your approval. It is my recommendation that we make this change. The employees have already been given a notice to have signed acknowledging that this reporting of wrongdoing options is available to them. So it is by county ordinance and the requirement, and the italics language is the change to the personnel policy.
Is there a motion to add the reporting wrongdoing section to the town's personnel policy?
So moved.
Second.
Read it.
Commissioner Ganger?
Yes.
Commissioner Stanley?
Yes.
Commissioner White?
Yes.
Commissioner Orthwein?
Yes.
Mayor Morgan?
Yes. Anything else from commission? If not, meeting's adjourned.
Okay.
He's not in.
I almost forgot all these files.
Oh, brother. I could have made money on
You're
that.
looking
Yeah.
for that.
Yeah, you can solve it.
Agreement, right?
Yeah,
I got a process.
He's stuck.
I'll get it from you next week.
All right,
They want to knock over the funeral.
I'll get right on it. It's done, it's a done deal. Really?